Our next presentation is Jeff Reynolds. Will present his layout in HON3 Mears Madness. I got to see this thing in one of its iterations years and years and years ago. And I thought, my gosh, this guy's got every stock car in the world in HON3. But he's got more. In any case, Dave is going to introduce him and bring us up to date on what Jeff is doing. So take it away.
Okay, will do. So Jeffrey Reynolds was a bass trombonist in the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra between 1968 and 2006. Then he retired, but while he was still playing and doing that for a living, he essentially played 22,000 services with the orchestra. He's been heard on soundtracks for all the major recording studios, other recording companies, and he was also a professor in charge of 80 brass players at California State University in Long Beach. I think that Jeff says if anything's worth doing, it's worth doing to excess, and that certainly sounds like what he's done with the music part of his life. So currently, he's still involved with music. He's arranging for and directs 4 Compline choirs at Holy Trinity Episcopal Church in Nevada City, California. He says the Compline is a short, late night, chanted, harmonized monastic prayer service at the end of the day. His other passion, he notes, includes modeling the Rio Grande Southern Railroad in HON3. So with that, we'll go ahead and turn this over to Jeff and see what he's got. It's pretty amazing.
This is my model railroad pilgrimage. And anything worth doing is worth doing to excess. It's a mantra I developed during my college years to guide and narrow my choices. The mantra was applied in my life's work as a musician, as a professor, with my lovely and fetching wife, Jean, our children, grandchildren, and close family, my trust in God and Jesus Christ, producing Compline, hardcore jeeping, truck camping, the quest for a more rural lifestyle, and in the hobby realm, modeling the Rio Grande Southern Railroad in HON3, I must say, with all its accoutrements. When I saw Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you remember that movie, a movie on which I actually played John Williams' soundtrack he was conducting, fanatically driven to make a model of the Devil's Tower, I knew exactly how he felt. In June of 1971, our family of 3 at that time were on a camping trip with family friends to RGS country. I'd never been there. As a hardcore model railroader, not me, my friend Arnold just happened to bring a brand new book along. Boy, this is an oft-repeated story. The book is entitled The Silver San Juan by Mal Farrell. At the time, I had no interest in model railroading. I read the book and studied the great photos cover to cover at the Sunshine Campground near Vance Junction, right where much of the RGS action and story happened. And we drove our Jeeps around in these places, and subsequently, I purchased every new book and old book related to the Rio Grande Southern, which included CNS and DNRGW and lots of aligned railroads. What unraveled from this point on is so much a parallel universe with Scott McLeod and his attachment to modeling the Rio Grande Southern and sticking to HON3 even after major moves. Remember, at this time, 1971, the RGS had been abandoned for less than 2 decades, so the right-of-way and remaining relics were relatively fresh. I didn't start modeling of any kind until I was 39. That was a not so fresh 40 years ago. Since then, I still have been unable to slake my thirst for the modeling of historical scenes and scenery and geology, geography, operations, photographs, locomotives, rolling stock, track, turnout, trash, junk, rubble, structures, flora, and all the general and specific flavor of those hardy mountain railroaders. They daily face seemingly impossible odds with diminutive steam trains against the overwhelming obstacle of the wild and vertical San Juans. As a business and as an operation, the RGS rewrote the book on brinksmanship. There's something very personal about plugging up leaking steam boiler flues with oatmeal, geese that ran hot going downhill, and that teetering on the edge, make do perspective that fires the imagination. The gutsy style of the RGS is timeless. By 1982, I started to assemble a locomotive. Well, this is an often told story. A cheap controller, some wire, and flex track to start a model railroad in earnest. Next came several plastic and wood car kits, then tools, lots of small tools for modelers. I cleared out a 354 square foot workshop and started with some bench work and sub-road bed construction. After very little planning, I started to experiment. This was the blunderbuss approach. I like that. You pull the trigger and it all spreads out. But became more streamlined as we progressed and became more focused. I purchased a used industrial jewelry making soldering machine used in New York City at a hobby store and started to build my own PC tie board turnouts, jumping right in with the first of three-way stub switches at Rico, Colorado. Subsequently, I built over 100 PC tie board turnouts in HON3, SN3, and a few in ON3. The most impressive big operations over the Rio Grande Southern were the twice-a-year stock rushes taking place in late spring to bring stock up to the high country for grazing. Cattle in single-deck cars, sheep in double-deck cars, and during late fall and during the rush to get all those critters down from high pasture to market. In 1992, I was fortunate to find a new book called Taking Stock by Victor Stone. He methodically found a way to make sense out of DNRGW's stock car building phases and numbering system. Vic included examples of every single version of builds and rebuilds with hundreds of black and white photos to add a large collection of photos of stock cars as evidence. After absorbing all this, I set out to build a stock car fleet, building 10 to 12 at a time, assembly line style. That sounds familiar. Maybe 20 minutes ago, we heard the same thing. As evidence.
Why do you let her in?
Okay, somebody's trying to talk here. Should I keep going? Okay. Vic included examples of every single version. After absorbing all this, I set out to build a stock car fleet 10 to 12 at a time, assembly line style, using photos of that very car number to flesh out making a diminutive copy. It's now up to 83 count for stocks, including every version of single and double deck narrow gauge stock car that ran on the RGS or even near the RGS. Virtually every car I built was to a photo of that car and that car number and condition that ran on or near the RGS. Gondolas. One of the most numerous cars found on the narrow gauge were high side gondolas. We have 46 on Mears Madness, built basically by Steve Dernan and myself, about half and half. Maybe he did a few more, including one fabled car that got hit by a giant runaway boulder in a photograph and was pronounced thereafter as scenery for Mears Madness. Every 30-foot high side and drop bottom gondola on Mears Madness built to a photo and condition of that car number. There was no standard car. Well, maybe a 10-stake car with all stakes replaced by the car shop men at Alamosa were more prevalent. There were a handful of gonds set aside for the proprietary use as coal gonds for the RGS. They had a small black placard on the sides announcing, "This car not to leave RGS." Oh boy, I'm really nervous now. There were two basic types of 30-foot high side gondolas. A 10-side stake car with 3 stakes closer together in the middle. There were 9 side stake cars with more or less equal spacing. Most had U-bolts and keeper plates to hold the stakes to the car body, and much longer U-bolts on a diagonal to keep their sides from splaying out under load. Some had cast iron stake pockets, which we tried to use when we saw that in the photo. These cars are built as 4-board cars and extended to 5 boards, necessitating a decision to be made by the carmen. If it was ascertained that the side stake was solid enough to just have a short cripple stake added and bolted alongside to extend the 4-board to 5-board high, or if beyond redemption, replaced altogether with new, longer one-piece stakes. There were infinite variations with shorter and longer cripples and even double cripples. That car, 1217, has doubles. With Stan Rhine's new book on gondolas, the long, still sinuous build cycle is easier to follow. In 1992, we ran our first 56-car stock train over Mears Madness 2. It took 45 minutes, 5 spotters at every corner, and the combined tractive effort of 4 mud hens to pull the train from Rico to Ridgeway, a grand total of 162 feet. Subsequently, we ran an 83-car stock consist over the Slim Gauge Guild's much lower gradient, with the 42 helping on point with that big dumb-looking plow, followed and spread out were the 5 K27s with spotters at every single turn. Thanks to the late Dave Garcia's micromotor, gearhead, and detail work, he did a lot of soldering on all the engines that I had. They all ran at the same slow speed with those German Swiss micromotors. 15 scale miles per hour at watt. What is watt? That's wide open throttle. That's about 18 volts. But move in slow motion together like a water ballet with 176.4 to 1 final drive at low voltage. My 12 brass import locomotives represent the very locos that were used on the RGS after 1940, namely the RGS 20. Here you see on one of the bridges at Ophir. The 40, which is in Telluride, and you see it all fenders and all this gadgets on it that did not come on the original brass. And the 41, it's a lot, you see fenders and other parts that weren't on the other one. And the 42, that's that great big K series plow that they used on there with a tiny little boiler. The 70, oh, it's at the, this is where, this is Ames Slide. The 74, they're shown in Rico in its last configuration, but the last configuration was the configuration on the RGS. The 455, This is after the wreck. You can tell by the big cab, and it looks like it's been redone. Now take a careful look at that plow that Dave put together. It's very accurate, and you can't see the other side, but it has that big patch that was welded on by the shopmen in Ridgeway. And also look at the cutout, so you could open the smoke box front to clean it out, get the cinders out. So that's something I haven't seen a lot of, and thanks to the late Dave Garcia. And the 461, which is one of my original engines I bought in 1982, I think. And this has been our best runner forever, and you can tell because it's had two sets of drivers, and the current set of drivers has no plating. So, and we've gone through 2 micromotors with this locomotive. I mean, this one got used to death, just like it was on the RGS. And the leased locomotives, that means the lessers, from the parent company in Denver and Rio Grande Western, the 452. And this one, they all run exactly the same speed. So you can quintuple head all these, and they all run the same speed. It's just amazing. And the let's see, that's 453. Yeah, that's the newest paint job we have. And it has all the current late 1940s look. This is coming down from Lizard Head, going north. And the 463, the 462, which this was the way it looked in early 1940. And you notice how small that the DNRGW logo is, and that's the way it looked on the tender, so that's the way it wound up. Now this one's not done. I do have a picture of this locomotive in its very last stretch with the RGS, and all the running boards were piled high with cinders, and you could barely read any of the writing on the sides, and it just looked, and cinders all on the top of the roof of the cab and on the end of the tender. It was just a mess. That's one of my projects coming up, is to make this look exactly like that one in that photo, which is really beat up. And the 463, the Gene Autry engine, it has the backup light, and this is also a good runner. They're all pretty good runners. They're all brass. I think I'm the only person in H013 that has no Blackstone equipment. Nothing, nada. I did buy a dozen sets of wheel sets that I use. They run better than the competition. We also run the motors, Galloping Geese, number 2. And here it is on one of the bridges at Ophir, and kind of in transit. And we have the 3 here seen at Trout Lake Tank. You can see the sign, not very well, but it says Trout Lake. The 4, which in its non-personnel version, it's on bridge 39A, if you need to know. And the 5 is on 39A also. And these are all pretty good runners. And the 6, this is kind of a this is trompe-l'oeil, because it fools the eye. This thing only runs if you have the little trailer with a motor in it. But so the 6 winds up being kind of just sitting there. Okay, which brings me to the operating system. Oh, the 7. Yeah, forgot the 7. This is absolutely the best runner we have. The lights all work, and it's the latest version of one of these geese in HON3. It was sold out almost immediately. Okay, which brings me to the operating system. It's an archaic DC, direct current railroad with 6 tether color-coded cabs or controllers with a Jones plug-in station near anywhere you can switch. A PFM2 tethered sound. What a great machine this is. A PFM mini sound console for Ridgeway only. And it's okay. A couple of great, I mean, really great ITTC tethered controllers. These, I don't know how he did it, but it makes even poor runners run very well. It's amazing. Several very basic controllers, which I won't even show you, and a separate lug for a Rico yard only console controller. You see it on the lower left there. Now, you notice the knob is different. It's because the big black knob that was on this thing from the factory kept hanging on people's long sleeve shirts as they passed here. So I put that short little knob on there to make it so people could get by without being hung up. We have 76 powered blocks which are controlled through 8 lug rotary switches using World War II B-25 bomber aluminum switch knobs. You see them there. They have a little arrow pointing up. Up is off on our railroad. And you see the little plan on the left. It's yeah, this is all handmade. And you see, looks like there's been stuff missing. Well, every time we move, there's a different track plan. So we had to think about it another again. So I found 40 of these aluminum knobs with a little set screw years ago, 40 years ago, at an electronics surplus store. So I bought all of them they had. Pacific Fast Mail's PFM2 complete DC sound system made the whole railroad come alive. Literally all the bells and whistles and track sounds and the wheel sounds and brakes and all kinds of hisses and different compressors and just amazing. I even had a kind of a compositor where I can simulate the sound of filling the tank with water, and the pitch gets higher and higher as you fill the tank. It's, you know, that's because I'm in the music business, so that the sound makes a difference. With extra speakers under the layout, the mountains would vibrate when the diminutive trains were pulling uphill with the Johnson bar pulled back pretty good. This sound animation with the slow chuff of the locomotives at the beginning of the move made the layout seem way larger than it really was or is. You get like, I'll simulate the start of a K-27, and it goes like this. Shoo. 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 Ooh. Ooh. Okay, and you can do that with a PFM2, and it's hard to do it with any other, especially HO3 engines, because they're not geared low enough to make that work. By the time the early DCC came along, as handsome as it is, for me, the die was already cast and there was no going back. At the time, the PFM sound apparatus took up the entire tender on my locomotive, so I was out of luck, unless I put them in a boxcar or something. Okay, operating sessions. We used mocked up train orders that looked like the flimsies used by the RGS, with a second page with a switch list and wheel report. One of us was appointed CD, as chief dispatcher. You can see it on the left page, my initials, JCR CD, and that looks very familiar as to the actual one. And the chief dispatcher, after dispatching everything, ran around during the session and would give verbals of change in case something stopped or went on the ground or shorted or something happened. constantly reminding the operators that you are not making the RGS any profit today. Let's go, unquote. This system negated the need for a time clock, and there was a clip near the yards and sidings where the operators could hold their train order while they operated and use, we have a special coupler pick we use. They're all over the layout, and they're attached to cows and barrels and boxes and corpses and all kinds of stuff around the layout. And you just pick it up, and it's a square toothpick with a pointed end, and you push it down into the coupler, give it a twist, and that's it. So I would spot out the rolling stock and locos beforehand to match the train orders. Some operating sessions lasted 7 hours, rotating in 12 operators in 2 shifts, because we had six cabs we can use anywhere on the layout. The layout is called Mears Madness in honor of the RGS's founder, Russian immigrant Otto Mears. It has survived in different configurations in 3 locations, doubling the amount of floor space at each move. 1, Mears Madness 1, 10 years in Downey, California, in a 352 square foot room. I cut my teeth here mostly by myself and made a lot of mistakes, but I learned about soldering, switch building, wiring, scenery making, hard shell, plaster slinging, foam board, and airbrush painting. Mears Madness 2, 15 years in La Crescenta, California, in a 654 square foot area. Notice it's about double. We became a club and things moved right along. I'll tell you more about that later. There was a lot of talent in our merry little band. Yeah, this was on Mears Madness 1. This is Placerville. Mears Madness 3, 16 years so far in Nevada City, California, in a 1,200 square foot windowless standalone building. It has a 14-foot 4-inch ceiling, which we're taking advantage of. Over the years, I've tried to keep the following things in mind. Model historically accurate scenes and towns in prototype order with prototype-looking grades and scenery between Ridgeway and Rico. I've expanded this to include the staging yard at Montrose and the branch line to Ouray. 2, operate in a prototype fashion with prototype-looking locos, rolling stock, consists, speed, frequency, train orders, setouts, and pickups. You notice in a lot of RGS pictures, there's usually a gondola right behind the engine. It may be full of coal, but it may be going back to toward near Durango to pick up more coal. It's one of the things that makes the RGS a little different. 3, find a few similarly energized and talented friends who share at least a similar vision to share in building and operating this large home layout. During an open house in 1996, my switch and wiring guru, from whom I learned a lot, his name is Tom Pollock, pronounced us the Mears Madmen. These boys have been the secret to success of Mears Madness. I cannot overstate the impact of these talented guys had on forward motion. The synergism moves the construction along. These are all real smart and energetic guys. That's a long time ago. Enjoyment way up and satisfaction up. In 1992, we had up to 6 members who came over weekly. This jolly, wine-swilling but talented band continued for 15 years. They were great years, the golden years for us. 3 madmen, Steve, myself, and Bobby, were hardcore, with the others floating in and out. Our format was to work on the layout construction for 3 weeks in a row, and then clean up and run what trains we could on the 4th week. There you see the madmen here. Bobby's on the right. Steve Dernan is the big guy sitting in the chair. And the guy with the black shirt was a rocket scientist at JPL. And Lauren Gendro, Lauren Marsteller on the left, it looks like Santa Claus. He's a trombone player in the studios. So, alas, I was unable to find a subsequent talent in the 3rd location, so progress slowed to a crawl. I occasionally got a field trip out of the former madmen, and we worked on the stuff, but now they live 500 to 1,200 miles distant, some in Texas and other places. 4, point-to-point operation over 306 feet of main line. We have 30 scratch-built bridges, built to photos and plans of that very bridge. Sometimes we had to move it a little bit, including the so-called 9 trestles of Ophir, where the track clings to a vertical wall of rock. Bridge building was peddled out to 3 madmen, Jeff, Bobby, especially to talented modeler Steve Dernan, who took measurements and built bridges at home to fit, and they fit. In the newest location for Mears Madness 3, the Ophir loop was no longer a folded dog bone loop. That's like you get a double loop, and Mears Madness 2, but it was a straightaway 60-foot long hairpin loop, more like the original. I was required to dismantle 7 of the loop bridges, construct new decks to fit, and reuse and reassemble the dismantled bents and girders and all that stuff to fit the new decks even more to resemble the prototype. Next to me, Steve Dernan was the master builder of Mears Madness. His 2 massive structures build were the snow sheds at Lizard Head Pass at full size in HON3, and the complete butterfly mine and mill complex as it appeared in 1940. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to get good pics of this, but the butterfly mine takes about 4 feet by 4 feet on a 45-degree angle to get it all in. 6, on Mears Madness 3, I decided to lose the double decking. Single deck is where scenery is king. No space for the Telluride branch. Oh, awful. I still have Telluride itself on a 2x8 module, but it has been, the rest of it's been dismantled. The original Ridgeway or hidden yard has been refashioned into the staging yard at Montrose. Try to reuse a lot of stuff. 7, all track is at an elevation between 50 inches at Ridgeway and 65 inches from the floor at Lizard Head Pass. No grade over 3%. Code 55 flex track on the main line. Code 40 flex track on all the sidings and Ys and spurs. Code 70 flex track and Shinohara switches. I didn't build those. Formerly on hidden trackage, now Montrose staging track. All code 55 and 40 hand-laid track and turnouts in Telluride and Ilium. We have Ys at Ridgeway, Dallas Divide, Ilium, Lizard Head, and Rico. 1 hit-bashed 50-foot turntable at Ridgeway. This was a lot of fun building that one. Here it's a 74 on a, that's an N-scale girder under there, by the way. 100-foot N-scale girder. 8, I have built 80 PC tie board soldered turnouts, about 40% stubs and 60% point. Does add up to 100. Curved, right and left, number 6 to 10. We have Y turnouts, and they're all built per photos or plans or built to fit the circumstances. including 5 three-way stub switches, one at Vance Junction, and this one at North Rico, and the 3 there you see in the photo at Rico using the choke cable and micro switch method of control. That's a real 60s kind of fallout. But this whole system's been very reliable. Almost nothing has gone wrong with these in 4 decades. They're foolproof. They have throttle stops, so you can't pull them too far, and they have and if you push them all the way in, they're geared just right for the track. That works out good. Dave Adams asked me to include some overall layout pics for this project. Easier said than done with a 30 by 40 room. What follows is the only way I could encompass Mears Madness by taking a lot of aerial shots at the 12-foot level on an 8-foot step ladder. Okay, you will be able to see the 8 scenic portions or sections, small and large, brought from a former residence and stitched into the newest Mears Madness. One of the 2-sided backdrop painted subwalls in the space shoots up 12 feet from the floor, and behind the Ophir Loop, and on the other side, Lizard Head Pass on the other side. The protocol was to install 2 by 2 vertical spines on which to attach 1/8-inch hardboard on both sides to give a 2-sided backdrop wall for Jeannie to paint. Obviously, she's not going to paint when it's up there. I did get a couple big guys to help me get all that up and do some trimming beforehand, and we took it all down, but not before temporary fitting and screwing all the sheets and spines together. I took a felt tip pen taped to a yardstick and got on another ladder and outlined the top parts to be trimmed, by the way, equally on both sides, which we did once we got them down, from a step ladder, and to fit the geography of the area, and again at the bottom overlap reach of the backdrop painting to be covered by scenery. Then we took the 4x8 sheets down. Some were not all 4x8, some were 4x6 or something. Numbering and trimming them with many photos of the area clipped around the easel. We were ready for the artist. Jean, my queen, a landscape painter, had done some 60 line feet of backdrop for I think she did more than that, I don't know, for Mears Madness 1 and 2. We had to leave some of that, so she's probably done more than what I'm going to tell you. And I got down on my knees once again and begged her to produce another 120 line feet of not too interesting backdrop. Colorful, but not too interesting. Okay, that was part of our protocol. From photos on hardboard or directly to the wooden walls. Yes, we have wooden walls. They're 3/8 plywood. Now, why is that? You can attach scenery easily. I set up a makeshift easel, you see it there, to be operated in the seated position to save her back, because she's going to spend some time in the driver's seat there. Of all the efforts done for Mears Madness, nothing compares to the impact of her backdrops for so little time involved, compared to the time involved by myself and Steve Durnan to bring Bridge 45A to fruition with every nut, bolt, and washer. That bridge consumed over 100 hours of Steve time and my time. I first built this at about a 5/8 version on Mears Madness 1. And then when we moved to 2, we wanted to make it much longer. It's not quite full length, but close. And I think we're missing a couple vents is what we are. But you notice those kind of newer looking wood vents. That was the replacement for that deck truss that was originally in there and banned by the PUC or whoever. Anyway, Jean's backdrop took maybe 18 hours compared to 100 hours, but the impact is so much more. In 2006, I retired from my bass trombone position with the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra, a teaching position, and Hollywood movie recording industry. Jeannie and I moved north to the wilds of the West Slope, northern Sierra Nevada, on a couple acres of tall trees. I built an insulated, wood-heated, windowless, standalone 30 by 40 building. Notice the 3-foot man door. I guess I can say that now. And it's got a 10-foot roll-up on the other end. But it does have a high ceiling to house the large salvage sections of the layout from Mears Madness 2, so we could start Mears Madness 3 when it came time. The structure was not ready for a couple of years, or maybe a little less, so I stored many of the chunks of the earlier Mears Madness that we had transported to 2 rented 40-foot shipping containers that got dropped on our property. Now you're wondering, does he or does he? No. Yes, you are correct. We don't have any HOAs. There are none in sight. I'm sorry to say that at no time did I think the layout would move again, and did not make it detachable in sections. So it was a hatchet job moving all these parts those couple times. My nickname, because I was the chief killer here, both times we moved the layout, was Marquis de Sawzall. With the 2019 Sacramento Narrow Gauge Convention looming, I dedicated 6 months to finish building and scenicking 1/3 of the entire railroad. We planted at least 2,500 separate trees, all in forced perspective. And that's another thing about our scenery. Everything's in forced perspective. It works very well in HON3. But one thing is clear, Mears Madness 3 is too large a project for me to finish alone in my lifetime, and I'm okay with that. The last 16 years have been a slow rallentando, with many other pursuits taking priority. Here you see, this is the complete 35-foot long Ridgeway yards, including the Y, the main yards, and the depot, and the engine house area. So from one end of that photo to the other is 35 feet. When I attempt to do some modeling project that was so simple and easy 30 years ago, I find I've lost much of my knowledge and technique to accomplish the task, and have had to do some relearning. What I do have left is a lot of images that you have been watching as I speak. So thanks for listening and watching.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm exhausted watching this. It's actually, it was a pleasure seeing what you had done when we were in Sacramento for the convention in 19. And this is a lot of work done since then.
Yeah.
It's really an incredible piece of work.
Tremendous scene of Goose 7 in there that people ought to see. It's pretty slick.
And that will be appended to the recording
Yeah,
on the website.
Well, this is, it's
Looks like a crime
unfortunately,
photo.
yeah. Yep, we've still got the jerkiness.
Yeah.
We can
That's
link
going
it to
over
a
over the
YouTube
Gallagher
video.
trestles.
Yeah.
Wow.
It runs a lot less herky-jerky.
Well,
Now that's a function of Zoom, but we'll put it up
Yeah.
on a YouTube channel. It'll be much better.
yeah. Yeah, because actually the video is really smooth.
Beautiful.
Coming into Lizard Head. You can see through the sheds.
Mhm.
This is the RJS 40. Do we have sound? The
Yeah,
main reason
the video has sound.
it doesn't on this end.
Oh, well, yeah, we're having Zoom problems here.
Okay, this is bridge 43A, the so-called Ames trestle, the last big one to fall. That's the Ames tank down there, down the way. Yeah, it'll be a lot smoother on you on
YouTube, yeah.
This is that kind of short stock train coming into the 40 could handle a stock train going downhill. Yeah. Does anybody hear sound?
Nope.
No, no.
Okay.
No,
This
there
is,
won't
this
be
is
any
really,
sound.
this is really jerky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's a function of playing the video back on Zoom. It just doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks, Jerry, for
Yeah.
trying this. We learned once again this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, I'm going to get into the chat room, and I know we had questions and compliments and things showing up there. So let me go to work with that. Okay. Start out here is one of the first things was a question from John Shearer of Kansas City saying, "How do you get the geese to run well?" So
I left that to Dave Garcia,
okay.
and actually he remotored a lot of those early ones that were real clunky with a much better can motor. And that helped a lot. The other is getting the mechanism broken in, but not worn out. And there's a kind of fine line in there between, because those gears are really rough cut.
Yeah.
There's nothing spectacular about those, except that last one on the Goose 7. I forget who made that one, but they also did a DCC version of it. And I'm sure it runs just as well. They re-geared it and, added lighting. So it's a great one.
That should be PSC.
Creep. No, it's, it'll come to me.
Okay, well, let's see. So here's a remembrance from Hal Gorse. He says, "I helped Jeff move his first layout across a swimming pool over a bridge we built out of 4x6s and plywood from his home in Downey to La Crescenta
That's
in the
right.
late 80s." Yeah, so I think the
Yeah.
first time I saw your railroad was the Downey one.
Yeah.
So
Concord. That's it. The 7 was a Concord. That's right. Yeah, I remember. I think he signed up on our guest book. We always had a guest book out. I remember that name.
Okay, and then let's see. So John Scherer has another question. He says he's built the butterfly mill and it's 4x3. And he says, "Do you have any photos you can show of your mill, the butterfly?"
Yeah. I don't know how to do it right now.
Well,
Why don't you send those photos to Dave so we can put them in our pre-show program in the next couple of months?
Okay.
that would be great. Yeah, I'd
All right.
enjoy doing that. Okay,
All right.
and then Yeah, Bill Hobbs, I think after looking at your aerial photos taken from the 8-foot step ladder said, "What? No drones?" So,
Well, we have enough airspace, but
yeah,
yeah,
no.
that's right.
And compliment from Kevin Barnett saying, "Jeff, you're one of my early narrow gauge inspirations. It's been great to hear the history of your Mears Madness RGS layout."
Huh.
And Scott McLeod says, "Your journey has been very inspiring over the years, and to finally be able to see a more complete presentation has been a real treat." And Moose says, "Thanks for the presentation on your MMR journey."
Yeah.
As Doug John just said, "Really good to see." Jim Spice, "Great work, wonderful layout." Mark Lewis, "What an amazing HON3 journey, Jeff. So much inspiration in your presentation." And then John Shear's got another question. He says, "Do you run prototype length trains?"
Yes, yes, we do. Yep. Not very often, but on the part of the video part that I gave Dave to splice together, the boxcar train pulled by the some K-27, I think it had 22 cars. So that's more or less prototype. And we have enough space. It's over 300 feet of main line, so you can drag it out. But I must warn you, you feeling lucky today?
Yeah.
When you do trains that long, you know, the chances of derailing are, that's the other thing is, it took me a long time to figure out what the weight should be on a 30-foot car for my grades and the engines. And now all my brass engines are absolutely loaded with Serobend. And the cab roofs, you can't tell because we painted it black, but we turned the cabs over and filled the whole top of the cab upside down with Serobend. And we filled the whole smoke box where the motor goes full of Serobend, and then use a cutter, a hot knife, to cut out just enough space so the motor would fit in. So each motor is encased in Serobend. So some of the many of the K-27s weigh 1 pound, which is pretty heavy for HON3, 16 ounces. Yeah. And the other thing is how to keep them running. Most of the electrical problems are because of the tender trucks. The tender trucks tend to lose capacity to transmit electricity. So I use tuner tonic. You ever get a little spray can of tuner tonic and you spray it, you know, turn the thing upside down and spray it around there and make sure it has a very good connection. That helps a lot. Now, when some engine stops for seemingly no reason, if I just push on the tender, just push down on the tender, it's not the wheels that are getting the pickup. They're good. I'll tell you about that too. I use this track cleaner. It's basically alcohol with some other stuff added. Lifelike, I think, made it. You ever use that stuff? Okay. The other thing you need though is trolley rail. What is trolley rail? It's a guard. It's a rail that has a built-in little cup, so you could put it in concrete or pavement for the flanges. It's a built-in flangeway. So you use an eyedropper and some of this lifelike, it's kind of alcohol stuff, and pour it in the grooves and run the train back and forth over it, and the goop falls off. Amazing. And that's helped a lot. And you do that on the tender too. And so you get, in fact, I do that on all the rolling stock. It takes days because I have 286 pieces of rolling stock. So you're doing that for days because you have to do, if you're not doing an engine, you just do the one at a time. So you know, okay.
All right. And let's see, there's, Phil Taylor says this was a true inspiration. Yeah, Jim Brown. It says, what an amazing creation. Thanks so much for a wonderful presentation. Then Phil Taylor kind of looked at the Goof 7 and said, yeah, it looks like a Concorde to me. So there
It
is
is. He's right.
confirmation
That's
from
the one.
everybody else said that. And
Yep.
yeah, Bill Hobbs just notes that all you should have left to do to get a master model railroad certificate is the paperwork. It says, great job on all 3 layouts.
Great.
Yeah, let's see. Then John Scher says, when can we see your layout? I guess other than tonight, huh?
Well, I have some ideas about that actually. Dave, when you finally told me how you developed the title for this project,
Mhm.
It came to me that you picked the right people. It's not people that live in big metropolitan areas or next to some narrow gauge mecca, but you pick people that are kind of out in the sticks. And that certainly, I fit that. I've been on the tractor twice today with my snowblower, just to give an idea. So I was thinking about having a next summer, having a kind of RV live-in open house over the whole summer, and you would just sign up for a few days, and you can show up and run trains. And for that, you can take 3 or 4 cars home with you. You can't take it with you.
Well, I have to say, when I visited your layout in 19, it was actually part of the inspiration for this notion of off the beaten track.
Good track.
I'll be darned.
Because I recognize there are an awful lot of guys who will not get visited because the convention will never go back to their home again or to the
That's
area
right.
again.
Sure.
And then there are just a number of people who are off the beaten track.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. Great.
We're
Yeah,
still
so-
looking for more.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. and,
Well, you got to find somebody that's not doing the RGS.
yeah. Let's see. Then we've got a few more things that popped up in chat. One question from Jake Sweeney is, have you been published in any magazines that he can reference?
Oh yeah. Let's see. It was June 1987. Railroad Model Craftsman had a cover and a whole
Yeah.
article. That was our original one, and it showed. I showed the. Let's see. It showed the coal chutes at Rico on the
Mhm.
cover, and some guys and gondolas and a train, an engine pushing the gons up the little grade to get there. And subsequently, we had 2 more in Railroad Model Craftsman. And in 2019, there's a publication called Narrow Gauge Down Under. You know about that
Mhm.
one?
Yes.
Yep.
And the guy was there at the convention and took a lot of pictures. And subsequently, he had I don't know, pretty good sized article, maybe 6-7 pages, with a lot of pictures, maybe 15 pictures.
Hmm.
So that's basically it. I wrote a couple for the Gazette. It didn't really
Yeah.
turn out very well for varying reasons, and it wasn't Bob Brown's or his wife's fault. It was just they have a certain protocol that I just didn't fit. That's all.
Hmm.
No dispersions.
Oh, good. And then I think Bill Lund, who's the layout chair for Denver, seems to be trying to recruit. He says, are you coming to the Denver Narrow Gauge Convention? The other
I'm
thing
thinking
is,
about it.
I wonder if Bill's planning on putting you on the layout tours out of Denver. That'd be a heck of a drive, Bill.
That's a commute. Yeah, that's a long bus ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've also had from the Pacific version of the NMRA when they were in LA a couple times,
Mhm.
once in Long Beach and once somewhere else. I can't remember, somewhere in Orange County, I think. They had they called me and said, "Would you be on the layout tour?" I said, yeah. He said, "I said we need a narrow gauge, and trying to get different." I said, "Okay, fine." He said, "Oh, tell me what's going to happen." I mean, I was used to having 3 or 4 friends over, blah blah blah. Holy moly! So he said, "Well, we're going to send a few buses up your way." And he said, "Be sure you have at least a 60-foot frontage in front of your house." And so I don't know how many dozen Greyhound-sized buses showed up in front of our house, one after the other. And 40 people got off and milled around a while and then got on the bus. And as soon as they left, another one pulled up, and it was all day like this.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've all had this if you've been in the broad gauge circle before, the NMRA thing.
Yep. Well, let's see. So I think we've pretty much exhausted things other than I think John Shear suggested is why don't you try the Gazette again? So I think he's looking for some stuff that could be currently published. But yeah, any photos and things you have, I'd be more than happy to figure out how to put them into our pre-slideshows here for these things,
Okay.
Jeff. So you
right.
Want to consider that that would be great.
All right, I'll send you a batch, and you can have your way with them.
Okay, yeah, we'll dole them out over the months to come.
That's right.
Okay,
Right.
well, let's see. I think with that, Russ, I'm going to turn this back